Hola a todos y bienvenido to episode 16 of the Voces and Vivo webinar series, proudly hosted by Círculo Castellano. Tonight we are exploring a thrilling and highly nuanced theme, lost and found in translation, navigating cross-cultural landmines. And to guide us through this topic, we are deeply honored to host a true maestro of language, academia, and global diplomacy, Dr. Anil Dhingra. Dr. Dhingra's extraordinary journey began in the 1970s, studying in Madrid and later continuing research in Havana during Cold War. He has served as a full-time faculty member at JNU since 1981, published 12 books, and directed the EU Erasmus Mundus program of Multi-LA. Beyond academia, he has been the diplomatic voice in the room for over 300 international conferences, serving as an interpreter for global organizations, and in recognition of his lifelong dedication, he has received prestigious honors from the King of Spain. Professor Dhingra has also instituted Professor Anil Dhingra Grant for the promotion of Hispanic studies in India in memory of late Dr. Antonio Sagrera, pioneer of Spanish studies in India. So far, 12 students from JNU, Doon University, and English and Foreign Language University, Hyderabad, has benefited from this grant. Thank you so much, Dr. Dhingra, for giving us your absolute privilege and time today to host you today on our webinar.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, sir. And we would not waste any more of your time and dive right into our webinar today. And with that, I would love to, do a very icebreaker session where know a little bit about your journey since the beginning. Since you moved to Spain in 1975 and must have been like a huge cultural shock to you. So how did you navigate the, colloquialisms and cultural nuances as a young Indian student without today's technological resources when you moved to Spain?
In 1975, in the middle 70s, you can't imagine the state of India at the time. There was no telephone. Very few people had landline. And moving to Spain, I was the only student who got scholarship to study in Spain. So I was alone in Spain from India as a student. And there was no way to communicate with the family. It was only through aerogram, which used to reach in 15 days. And when I went there, I had done my diploma of Spanish studies, which was a part-time program because there was no full-time program at the time in JNU. And when I reached there, it was a complete cultural shock for me because from India to Europe at that time, when there was no internet, no flight booking on internet, one had made great efforts, no foreign exchange, no money, and reaching there and suddenly find yourself in the heart of one of European capital. It was quite shocking a little bit, but then I had to stay with a family. I had got the address of that family where I was going to stay. And when I landed from airport, reached Plaza de Colón, that is the city center, I took a cab. And the cab people were very nice, taxi drivers at the time in Spain. They were very, very helpful. And whatever little Spanish I could speak, I asked him whether, he understood English. He said no. Then I used my Spanish. And he said, yes, he will take me there. And we reached Plaza de Legazpi, where I was supposed to be staying. And that family did not know English at all. So it was from day one, my complete and full immersion in Spanish language and culture started. I had initial problems, but then I think over a period of time, over 2-3 weeks, I could follow and they could follow me. And I also improved my communication skills in Spanish. The other problem was, there was no problem, but in India, we used to have early dinner, so I used to feel very hungry about 8 p.m. And in Madrid, nobody would eat before 9:30 or 10. The restaurants would not open before 9:30. And there was a restaurant which was in the same plaza where I was staying. And I would go and wait for the waiter to open the door. And then he would see me, and for me, he would do a special favor so that I could enter. And I told him that, in India, we eat little early. So he said, no, no problem. You can come in and eat whenever you feel like eating. And that was the cheapest place near my place where I was staying. So that kind of shock was there. And plus, another thing was that there was a political situation in Spain. I reached there in first week of September 1975, and General Franco was still alive. Spain was in a dictatorship of more than 3 decades. No? So the atmosphere in Spain was completely different from Indian atmosphere. And we were used to freedom, democracy, although here also, 2 months before I left for Spain, emergency was declared by Mrs. Indira Gandhi in the month of June 1975. But I had not seen the ill effects of emergency here. But when I went there, I was briefed that, when you go to university, do not discuss politics. Just discuss, good things about Spain, travel, studies, wine, sangria, and, nice things about which Spaniards, they talk about, or they feel like living. And I went to the university, and the university was very nice place, Complutense University. And we had our classes in Facultad de Filosofía y Letras. And we had a group of foreign students, because I was doing Diploma de Estudios Hispánicos. There was a diploma program, intensive diploma, language, literature, history, philosophy, art, etc. Geography of Spain. So it was a very nice experience. So most of the students in my class were foreigners, and many of them other democratic countries. So we were told, even if you're in canteen, in the university cafeteria, don't talk about politics, because even the waiters there, would be listening to you and would be reporting. And another shock for me was to see Guardia Civil standing in front of each and every aula, classroom, listening to professor and his lecture, and also conversation with the students, no interaction with students. So there was no political discussion at all in any class. It was pure learning, you see. So that kind of thing was very, very, shocking. And in the month of November, if I am not mistaken, General Franco passed away because he was not feeling well. He was admitted in hospital. And when he passed away, there was a lot of uncertainty about the future of Spain, whether there was going to be another coup, or there was complete political uncertainty. And there were forces which wanted democracy to come in, and there were pro-Franco forces which wanted the same kind of regime to continue. But students in the university, Spanish students in the university, they were pro-democratic. So some of the brave students, 5 of them, they took out a procession in the campus with a poster on which it was written "In pro de democracia." And they had the courage to move around in the campus, and they were being followed by more than 200 Guardia Civiles, civil guards, and 1 helicopter hovering above them. So that was another shocking sight for me, to see minimum protest in pro of democracy. In India, it's a quite common thing, to see. So those were initial, shocks. But in any case, after living there for 3.5 years, everything was, it was a political transformation which was taking place in Spain at the time. And it happened, without any incident, without much violence, and it was smooth. So I could adjust that way.
I mean that journey is quite eventful and fateful, I would say. I'm believing that you reached there at the exact time, and all of the very big things that were happening in India and in Spain were happening at the time when you reached there. So it was like you were not just learning or studying in classes there, but you were learning a lot more while living there. So I believe this is something that is very interesting, to be truly honest. And hearing all the stories from back there, knowing that you couldn't, like, even if there were some problems, you couldn't like get back to your country properly, and like there were no proper communication channels as well, is something that's is unbelievable for at least us right now, because since we have so much of technology around us, like even going without it for a day seems
I know.
impossible. So
In those
yeah, I
days,
mean,
somebody wanted to communicate from India, they had to go to Eastern Court, the post office, and book a call, trunk call for abroad. You have to go there 1 or 2 days before and book it, and then go at the specific time, and they would give you 3 minutes, and you would talk to them. And if you're lucky, you will get connection, otherwise not. But my parents at the time did not have any telephone. There was no landline. Landlines came to, I got my landline in 1988 after great effort in Jain, because it was only MTNL. So in Spain also, people had only landline, but they could communicate on phone inside Spain. So those were the problems. But gradually, fortunately, I was in contact with my embassy. It was a very small embassy. So there was just 3 diplomats, 1 ambassador, 1 first secretary, and 1 attaché, and some other staff. So they were very friendly with me. They also needed my help because I knew Spanish. And for their day-to-day requirements, they would call me. They would invite me for lunch, dinner. So I did not miss much. I could eat Indian food, but I loved Spanish meal also. So from time to time, they would need my help. And during summer vacation, I also worked in Indian embassy to earn extra money. And I also dealt with the many delegations which Mrs. Gandhi used to send to Spain, to make propaganda in favor of emergency. So I used to work as an interpreter with them, to accompany them and in their meetings with the Spanish counterparts. So that way, it also provided me some, on-the-job training for as interpreter and translator. So that way, I kept myself busy professionally and also personally, at a personal level.
I mean, it definitely shows, because your journey has been like one of the most, I would say, inspiring, journeys that we've heard in the field of Spanish and Latin American studies, specifically in India, knowing that there are still not a lot of students, who are in this course, and your journey, seeing as you were not just studying Spanish, you were like living it, and knowing you were also like helping India in such a critical time in that way, is something that's very amazing, to be truly honest, and it's like astonishing to me. So I mean, this is amazing hearing from you about all your life journeys. And I would also love to hear one more fact about your timing during Madrid. So as you were just mentioning that the restaurants would not open, and only there was one nearby your area that opened early for you, like that. So like, do you have any more favorite places in the city, perhaps a specific restaurant, cafe that still holds special memories for you, that you wish like you would go to now?
Nightlife, evening life, nightlife in Madrid is fantastic. Los madrileños, they are also called gatos because they are supposed to move around like cats at night, from bar to bar, and eat the tapas. So you go have tapas. My favorite place, and which still is for everyone, every foreigner who wants to go there, is near Puerta del Sol. That is Calle de Cuchilleros. There you have mesones. You go and have your beer or sangria with the tapas. And that is a very historical place. And it also has got many historical restaurants. The oldest restaurant, I have been told, Europe's the oldest restaurant is El Botín, Sobrino del Botín, which is also located in Calle de los Cuchilleros. And it has a very historical vibe. If you go there, it is also very attached to Plaza Mayor of Madrid. So if you go there at night, because those mesones, they are in the shape of caves. So if you go inside, you feel as if you entered a cave or in Middle Ages. And the setting is also such. And you have your sangria or you have your beer, sorry, or any other drink, and you have some tapas and talk with your friends, and then you move to another bar which also has the same kind of feeling which you get. And this is how, that is a favorite place for anybody. That used to be our favorite place, and it was not very expensive. But restaurants in Botin, yes, it's very expensive. But later on I shifted from Plaza de Legazpi to a street which was very close to Paseo de Florida, which has got the world famous church, which is called Iglesia de San Antonio. And the ceiling of that church is painted by Goya, Francisco de Goya, the 18th century's famous Spanish painter, no? Who came to paint in the royal court of Carlos III. But before that, he had to struggle a lot. And I was told there's a legend which says that he had to work as a waiter in this restaurant, which I just mentioned, in Botin. So he used to work and wash dishes there and also serve people who used to come and eat there. But later on, after painting the ceiling of this church, after 5 years, I think he was accepted as a painter in the royal court of Carlos III. I think in around 1775 or 80s. I'm not sure about the exact date. So I used to stay there, and there was a restaurant which is also very old, which is called Casamingo, which is famous for its pollo asado and cider. So that was very reasonably priced. So there I used to go very frequently with friends and with people who used to stay there, students. It was basically an area where most of the students also used to stay, sharing flats. So we had 3 colleagues from Spain. They were Spaniards. So we used to go there, and it was very, very enjoyable.
Thank you so much for sharing that amazing recommendations and places with us today, because I believe that this will be, helpful for a lot of future students as well listening to this, so that when they go to Spain, they can actually, experience the same magic that you did at that time. And knowing that Spain has so beautiful places in it for students, and as well as affordable. So this is something that definitely international students should, if they can, then experience once in their life. But I would also move towards, definitely. And, I would also love to move towards a little bit of the adversities that you faced by at the time when you were living in Madrid, when you mentioned that there was emergency situation in India. And in Spain also a lot of protests when it happened, like you were not supposed to do it at like that, like it happens in India, like it's so common, but it's not in Spain. So there must be a lot of regulations as well. And while working in the Indian embassy, you would also transcribe all the political documents. So how did that go? How were you able to manage that pressure when a political document would come, and that you cannot do any kind of mistake, because then it would exactly mean the opposite, and it can lead to a lot of problems in the future. So how did you manage that as a student at that time?
No, actually, my scholarship was for 2 years. I was given scholarship for 2 years, and 2 years means 2 academic years and 9 months. 9 months, that is academic year, 9 months. And 3 months, I was free, no scholarship. So initially, I worked for 3 months. Then after completing second lot of 9 months, I had no other alternative but to join the embassy. And embassy wanted me to work in the embassy, because they needed a translator. And they wrote to the Spanish government, and they sent my card, and my employment was accepted. So I was officially appointed as translator cum interpreter there. And I was issued a card, and I could go to the ministry on behalf of the embassy and do whatever I wanted to do. There was nothing political about it because it was a very small embassy, and India had very good relations with Spain throughout. So there was no controversial. Nothing controversial. I had shifted joined my evening shift in Escola Oficial de Idiomas, because there was no Cervantes Institute at the time. No? So earlier my morning shift was there. Then when I joined the embassy, my job was from 8 to 2:30, and then from 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock, I had to attend my Escuela Oficial de Idiomas. So I could very well manage the two. So there was no issue regarding political nature or this thing, because my job as a translator was to translate official letters and communication between Indian embassy and foreign ministry, or sometimes to accompany the ambassador for his meetings with Spanish counterparts and help him in understanding the language. Because at that time, very few people in Spain knew English. Nowadays, I think all Spanish officials, including their higher officials and prime minister and political leaders, almost everybody knows English. But at the time, nobody knew. So that's why it was very necessary for Indian embassy to have somebody to help them in communication.
But wasn't that a lot of pressure at that time, I would say, because being that you were the one who had a lot of duties when it comes to interpretation. So if it's a high diplomatic meeting happening at that time and you were there,
No.
kind of helping.
Because it was as I said, it was a small embassy, and there was hardly any work between Indian government and Spanish government. It was more of a symbolic relationship at the time. There was not much of collaboration. So there was not much work for me that, I was under pressure to, do a lot of interpretation work or translation work. So it was a very light kind of thing. And I could also, devote time for my studies. There was not much of pressure at that time, frankly speaking. Yeah.
That seems almost perfect, I would say, because I believe that is kind of the dream job of a lot of students in today's time, who want to do interpretation or make it their professional career in the future. So either by studying Spanish and either by going there or even in India. So I believe that can be something that a lot of students can take it from you and from here, that it's not the hard, it's just that you have to take the first step and be ready to do the meetings and be ready to do the work that there is. And since you also mentioned about going to a lot of diplomatic conferences and meeting, and you have been to a lot of them, almost 300 of international conferences for organizations like UN and WHO throughout your career span. So can you share maybe a memorable instance where a cultural misunderstanding almost caused a diplomatic issue, or maybe something other than that also that might have left a mark on your memory, that this is something that happened that was so interesting, like that?
That is an interesting question. Actually, initially, when you start working as interpreter, you do face some problems of communication, cultural understanding. But since I was living in Spain, I had understood, because before you do any type of interpretation, whether it is consecutive or simultaneous, you have to be familiar with the culture of the country or the people for whom you are working. So, because you cannot study language in isolation of culture. Culture and language should go together. And study of language also requires that you spend considerable time in the country whose language you're learning, so that you also get first-hand account of the culture. You get a chance of 100% immersion in that culture, so that the chance of any cultural misunderstanding is ruled out, is not there. But it does happen in interpretation, no? But I did not face much problem with culture. I did face some problem with personalities. When you're working for people, sometimes their personalities are so strong and you're not trained in that manner to deal with them, that you're overawed or you feel nervous while doing your job. So that may create some problems for you, that you may not be able to deliver your task. For example, when I did my first assignment, my initial assignment was in Spain with our former Speaker of Lok Sabha, Gurdial Singh Dhillon, who led a delegation of parliamentarians to participate in Interparliamentary Conference in Madrid. That was, I think, in 1977 or 78. I don't remember the exact year. So I had to go with him and do some interpretation with his Spanish counterpart. So that went very well. But when I came back to India in 1981, 82, I had to do interpretation for Mrs. Indira Gandhi when Herrera Campins, the president of Venezuela, had come to India with his delegation. So there I had some issues because, I could not understand some economic terms which they were using. And then I realized that, I was doing a job for which I had not done enough preparation. So then I realized that I should not accept any assignment of interpretation when I don't have enough material to study the topic and to prepare glossary. So if you are prepared, fully prepared, and you have the glossary, you are familiar with the topic, you are familiar with the people for whom you're working, then it becomes easier. And that way, the personality of Mrs. Indira Gandhi was very, very strong. No? She was all the officials who were working with her at the time in the ministry, or even her personal secretaries, they were also, overawed by her stoic personality, her demeanor. And when you go as an interpreter, as an outsider, it is very intimidating for you to, sitting next to her and doing the job. So you need some kind of assurance. But then gradually, you get used to it. The experience teaches you how to deal with those kind of situations. And at that time, we had no YouTube, no internet. Nowadays, the advantage is that you can go through the YouTube, listen to the speeches of the person for whom you're going to work. You can familiarize yourself with the accent, with the kind of intonation, the pronunciation, the kind of language they use, how they speak, their diction, and the kind of vocabulary they use. So that is a big advantage these days, no? But working with Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, that was also a very pleasant experience because he was the guy who would speak very slowly and in a poetic way, So you must have heard his speeches, at least recorded once. So it was very easy to translate. It was delight to translate or interpret for him. And working for the current Prime Minister, also for whom I have worked 3-4 times, and also in New York with him. So he is also a man who is very well prepared, about what he's doing, about the topic of discussion. He's a well-read man, well-informed. So you also have to be well-informed and up to the point, But he's helpful. He's very humble while dealing with people, Although his personality is also very intimidating. But then when you're working with him, you feel comfortable. You don't feel very, intimidated. So that is a big help. So it depends from person to person. So, but one thing is that you have to be fully prepared. Be prepared to do this kind of job.
Very true. Yeah, that is actually very true. I mean, it is, very incredible to understand that how much weight a simple, speaking style, addiction of the person when you are in the interpreting, job, you're doing that is so important to understand that because getting one thing right, or even one thing wrong can lead to a very big miscommunication issue in the meeting. So I believe that a lot of things that you mentioned, are a very good tips for people or students who are looking into going towards the interpretation industry, where before taking any project, they can actually prepare a lot about the topic, the person, and obviously now that as you just mentioned, we have a lot of technical helps as well, so we can use that as well when we are preparing. So yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Dhingra. And now I would like to, jump more towards your professional career in lecturing, where, you have lectured extensively, about Indian multiculturalism and secularism across many universities in Spain and Latin America. So how was that for you? Like, what is the hardest Indian, cultural slang or concept that was like very hard or difficult for you to explain to the Spanish speaking audience when you were lecturing them on the topic?
You see, European thinking and Indian thinking, they are totally different, and especially Spanish thinking, it is based and formed by their Roman Catholic thinking, and our thinking is, broader Hindu way of view of life. More secular. We don't have one religion. Hinduism is not a religion; it is a way of life. They say.
Yeah.
So, if you are explaining secularism to them or multiculturalism to them, they might, understand it in a different way than we understand, here. Although in India also now we are having a lot of, misunderstanding about this multiculturalism because of different reasons, and also concept of secularism. And then we have, our philosophical concepts like dharma, they would understand in a different way. So, or, guru shishya parampara, we follow, because here we mean that we have to give complete respect to the guru, and whatever the guru says, we do it. But there, you can't follow this kind of thing, no? Because it would mean different things. It would be taken in a different way. So now Spaniards are understanding, because there is more communication, especially because of social media, internet and Facebook and other means of communication. I think this gap is now reducing. There is more and more, I think, coming together of these cultures. And second reason is that we have now more students who have now visited Spain, and they work with children there, as I think auxiliares, in different parts of Spain. So they have also helped in eliminating this misunderstanding about Indian culture. But if you talk to any student, average student in a university, if you're giving lecture, the debate would be in multiculturalism, on secularism. Although Spain is also different from European culture in the sense that Spain has been ruled by different societies, different religions, different rulers, if you see Spain's history. So if Spain has become more intercultural than multicultural, And General Franco's time, there was a lot of oppression of all those cultures. It was purely Roman Catholic. No other language other than Castellano was allowed to flourish. So after this period was over, then you find resurgence of all the regional languages in full form. So now you can say it's a multicultural society, and there's a lot of immigration taking place in Spain. They are having some issues, but I think they will know how to handle those issues.
That makes complete sense, and thank you so much for sharing that amazing, journey and that explanation about how it is very important and as well as difficult. When we are talking about these very sensitive topics, that that can be taken or interpreted differently in every region, and however much we try, we need to be very sensitive when we are talking about the political and cultural issues, in another country, because they can maybe perceive it differently, and then we can get into trouble for that. So yeah, definitely see before speak kind of understanding is like that. And talking about another part of your life where you have done research there in the Cold War that happened in 1985, and you did research in Cuba, during that time as well, and have worked extensively in Spain as well. So how were you able to adopt your simultaneous interpretation on the fly to accommodate the drastic cultural and linguistic contrast within the Spanish speaking world, seeing that the Hispanic world is so vast and varied? So every area, every region have their own accent, culture. So how were you able to cope up with that?
No, when I went to Cuba, that was 1985. Of course, that was a period of Cold War. and it was a UGC fellowship for 3 months. So I went to University of Havana, and I joined ISPLE, that was Escuela Superior de Pedagogía de Lenguas Extranjeras. There also they used to train translators and interpreters. So, and I got a chance to see how they trained interpreters, and I learned, apart from collecting my research material for language, because it was a specialized place for language learning, foreign language learning. You know? And I had a chance to interact with the Cuban diplomats who were getting training in different foreign languages, because at that time it was a policy of Cuban government to train their diplomats also in the art of interpretation and translation, so that they could work also as interpreter whenever required. And they were very good interpreters. And they had large number of interpreters in different languages, you know, in Cuba at that time. So that was very useful and, stay for me, interacting with them. And because Cuban accent was also very, very different, no? Because if you have heard Cuban Spanish, you will notice that the S is not clear. It is ase espirada, no? Like when they say Moscow, they'll say Moscú, or Mosca, instead of saying Mosca, they'll say Mosca. So when they speak, you find that S is not there, no? And sometimes they speak very fast. So while interpreting, you are not able to get fully, you know, what the person is saying. And their accent is also very heavy, you know, because of African and other racial influences, no? Because Cuban society is multiracial. There are mulattoes, mestizos, then zambos, you know. So it's a kind of small country, very few people, but very, very multiracial, you know. This kind of mixture you don't find in any other country, except in Brazil also, I think, but that's a large country. So you have different kind of accents. But nowadays the advantage is that if you know that you're going to work for X person from Cuba as interpreter, you can just Google it and see his or her speech on YouTube and listen to it for some time, you know, and get familiarized. But at the time it was not possible. But I did not have to do any interpretation or translation there, no, because I went there just to collect my research material, to interact with the professors and researchers. But I had my great time in Cuba, living there in Havana, because Havana is a very historical place, you know. They had nice places around that. There's Old Havana, which is a UNESCO heritage site. And it has got lovely bars, nice nightlife, music, dance, because Cubans can live in economic difficulty. They are still living in, but they can't live without dance and music, no? Yeah. That is the main source of their entertainment and their life. And I remember, they also enjoy drinking rum, no? And they produce very good rum. So there's a bar which is called Bar El Floridita, which was also very famous because of Ernest Hemingway, who stayed in Cuba from, I think, for 2 decades, from 1939 till the revolution, 1959. And he used to frequent that bar, and he would like to have his daiquiri. Daiquiri is one of the cocktails which is very original of Cuba, along with the mojito. Mojito is also very popular in India now. If you go to any place, they say, you want mojito, virgin mojito, or with rum. So these two drinks, cocktails, they are originated in Cuba, in fact, and they're very good. So he would go and drink daiquiri, Ernest Hemingway, no? You know that he's an American, famous American writer who got Nobel Prize also for his work, I think The Old Man and the Sea, which he wrote in Cuba, in fact. And he loved marine fishing. So that's why he shifted to Cuba for 2 decades. And when the revolution took place, because of violence around revolution, he returned. He left Cuba at the time. But he frequented that bar, and that bar has become so popular. And the drink which Hemingway used to order in that bar is now called Copa Hemingway or Copa Papa, because Hemingway was called Papa lovingly by everyone. So I had a chance to visit that bar, no, on a couple of occasions, and it has memorabilia of Hemingway, and all tourists, when they go, they definitely visit that bar. And then he also used to say, Hemingway has written that mi mojito en la bodeguita, mi daiquiri en el Floridita. He used to love his mojito in another bar, which was called Bodeguita del Medio, which was also located in the historical city of Havana. And this one, daiquiri, was his favorite in Floridita. So that's why these two places are very famous. And apart from that, Cuba has beautiful beaches. And in Havana, you go and you see Malecon, which is Marine Drive. You can walk there and see nice, lovely atmosphere and nice beaches. People are wonderful. They have one theater which is called Teatro Marx. And if you go and watch a concert, you will love dancing. People are dancing on their seats when they see, some performance which involves dancing. They start dancing on their seats. So that is the spirit of Cuba. No? So it's a very lively, yeah. That is a lot to teach in other parts of the world, no? Because how, apart from, in spite of economic difficulties, you can enjoy life. You can learn from Cubans.
Exactly. Definitely, I completely agree with that statement. I mean, this is so unique that even if they have had so much problem, like in India, I believe that this is something that we do have a little bit of missing aspect where, like, even if we are, we are not that positively optimistic. Like we definitely try, but again, it depends on person to person. But in Cuba, I think it's more like, region based, that the entire of the country is like that, where, like, even if they're facing the problem, they would not leave living life. So that is something that's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, you touched all the very important and very interesting points of all the things that Cuba is, and your journey there has been so amazing to listen to. I would also like ask any about any other like fond memory that you had in the city while you were living there, aside from visiting that very famous restaurant that you mentioned, the place. Like, was there any other memory that was like, very much close to you or close to your heart that you still remember?
No, the other memory is that I think when I was there, our then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi also visited Havana at that time. And there was a lot of activity in the Indian Embassy. I was also invited for that activity because he was, I think, invited to receive a medal, highest honor, Jose Marti, on behalf of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. He had gone there. He was returning from New York, and he had to stop over in Cuba, in Havana, to receive that honor. So that moment was very, very important because I could meet most of the officials through our Indian embassy, which was also very small. No, it was not a big embassy. So in a way, my presence there also helped them because I could interact with them as a translator and also interact with other kinds of Cuban officials in the ministry. But that happened for a short duration. That is for 2 days only. So that was, and then in Cuba at the time, there were people, there were stores which were called Tecnotiendas, which were basically meant for diplomats and foreign people who had dollars or foreign exchange. Only those people could go and buy. So some of my Cuban friends, they needed to buy some, nice clothing from that place. They could not go there. So they would unofficially request me, can I go there on their behalf, because I had an Indian passport, and buy for them. So I did that on a couple of occasions, just to, as a friendly gesture to help them.
Definitely. That must be really hard. That must be really hard for them to, where they couldn't like do that. So I
You know,
think
because
this is
in
something
Cuba,
that
most of the Cuban families, after revolution, they shifted
yeah,
they left and they lived in Miami, and they kept sending money, dollars to their families in Cuba. No,
yeah,
so families in Cuba, they had dollars, but they did not. They were not allowed to go to Tecnotiendas personally. They needed somebody, so I had to help some of them that way. No.
I mean, that must be very interesting experience too, I believe. Like, even because when helping, you must have had a lot of fun as well, and then you have a good couple of friends as well,
Because before I
who can
left,
interact.
we used to have Cuban teacher in our department. 2, 3 teachers who came. Luis Estrada
Yeah.
was one. And when I went there, I met him there also. And he invited me to meet his family, entire large family. And they were very, very nice. Treated me very well. And everybody was very happy to meet me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no other reason why they would not be happy. I mean, your experience with them has seemed so good, and the fantastic memories are something that can just like we can just feel that. But yeah, and you have lived it, so the journey is definitely very significant and very interesting and inspiring as well, I would say. And since we have talked so much about your journey and about your experiences and the very important things that a lot of students and professionals can take away from your experiences, if they are planning to go into the interpretation industry in the Hispanic world as well. So I would love like if you could give some advice for the future generation and for the youth who might be watching you today, like if we are looking at the future times that is about to come. So, and you have been also the former director of multi-LA program and are a professor at JNU. So how would you say that, how would you teach future translators to move beyond textbook Spanish and truly grasp the soul and intention behind the words when they are like reading Spanish or learning it for the very first time? So how would you give any advice to students who might be listening to this?
Like I said earlier, no, the complete immersion, cultural immersion is number one requirement, apart from knowing the language perfectly well. And that will happen only when you're living in that culture for a considerable period of time. That is number one requirement to master the language. And apart from that, you should also be fully well versed with your own language. That is your source language. If you're doing from Hindi or English, that language and cultural nuances in that language, you should be fully familiar with. No? And in India, being a multicultural country, multilingual country, we find that most of us are not able to speak our mother tongue properly. We always use it mixing English words or other language words. No, so that is not the case with other, languages in other countries. When they speak, it is pure. If you hear any of those, recordings. But in India, situation is different. So, but you're fully immersed in the culture, that is, and for accepting any interpretation assignment. Once you do that, you have to prepare yourself very well. You have to familiarize yourself very well with the topic. Prepare. If you feel that topic is difficult, you will not be able to handle it. Don't accept the assignment, because otherwise you will be cutting a sorry figure. You will not be able to do it. No. So
And
you will be.
yeah,
So you will be asked to leave, or they will not hire you again. That would be unprofessional conduct. Because in United Nations, when interpreters are hired, they are hired because of their specialization. People who know economics, they are only asked to do conferences dealing with economic themes. And people who are, have some scientific background, they'll be asked to handle scientific theme conferences. So it's like that. But in India, people don't bother much, no? So even the authorities who hire, they will hire anybody for all types of conferences, and person who is hired will not prepare himself or herself fully for the job, because you have to prepare glossary, you have to prepare the topic very well. You also have to be familiar with the type of audience who will be participating in the conference, and be familiar with the speaker's accents. If you have access to list of participants or speakers, at least make an effort to go through their profile, see how they speak the language, what are their countries of origin, kind of language they speak, what is their diction. It always helps to do your job better.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more with that statement of yours. Thank you so much for that very amazing advice, Dr. Dhingra. And this has been such an amazing, wonderful conversation with you about all the very interesting aspects of the life of an international interpreter, student, translator in the Spanish world, in the Hispanic world. And before we go into the very fun and amazing Spanish rapid fire round, I would, urge if you could share one very golden secret of your life, that you have held on to since the very beginning of your journey to our audience today, that has helped you, pass or be successful in life as you are, and just help you keep going in your journey, so that it can help the students who are listening to you as well.
No, there is no one golden rule as such for any success in life. No, you have to manage things as and when you reach different stages of your life. So I changed my profession also. I was graduate in economics, 1972, shifted to Spanish with a lot of uncertainties. Then I had a job. I left the job, then went to Spain. So, you have to see how, you have to think, you have to dream. And if you feel that you can do better, then take a chance. Some risk you have to take. And then focus on your work. Focus is very, very important, and do some hard work, if you want to really achieve, that is, and then some good luck.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing that amazing theme and aspect to live by. And I would like to call upon Saurav now for the amazing rapid fire round. It has been really lovely connecting with you.
That's going to be difficult, no?
No, it's going to be fun, I believe. It's going to be very fun. Thank you so much.
It's going to be in Spanish. Okay, good. Muy bien.
Muchas gracias, Professor Dhingra, for sharing everything, sharing your life journey. And, at the moment sitting here, I am taking all those words and getting so much inspired, taking all your advices. That's something which inspires me to push myself much more hard into taking this Spanish circles, Voces and Vivo much more ahead, along with my own career in the Spanish and Hispanic studies ahead. Thank you so much, sir, for your words. Now, let's not waste your much time and quickly go up to the rapid fire round, where donde hablaremos en español totalmente.
Muy bien.
No debería usted pensar muchísimo, solamente la primera palabra que viene a su mente.
Tratar de hacerlo mejor, sí.
Por supuesto. Empezamos ahora con la primera pregunta. ¿Interpretación consecutiva o simultánea?
Interpretación simultánea.
El acento de español más difícil de interpretar bajo presión.
Acento latinoamericano, especialmente cubano, puertorriqueño, chileno.
Chileno, de acuerdo, completamente. Una palabra en español que desearía que existiera en hindi o inglés o en todos los idiomas.
Una palabra. Amorcito.
Amorcito. ¿Madrid en los 70 o La Habana en los 80?
Seguramente Madrid en los años 70.
Madrid hasta ahora también, ¿no? Su autor hispano favorito para desconectar del trabajo.
Autor hispano. Pablo Neruda y Federico García Lorca de España, y Neruda de...
Por supuesto, señor. El peor error que puede cometer un intérprete principiante.
El peor error, no prepararse bien el tema o no prepararse bien el glosario y no saber el tema de la reunión.
Es que una preparación antes es la clave para el éxito.
Sí.
Pues el encargo más estresante, una asamblea en ONEA o un cumbre bilateral de los primeros ministros.
Una reunión bilateral entre jefes de Estado o de gobierno.
Un plato de comida del mundo hispánico que siempre busca cuando viaja a usted.
Buena pregunta. Pollo asado con ensalada verde y gazpacho andaluz.
Gazpacho, eso no es sopa fría, pero no sé cómo va a sobrar. Bueno, una expresión idiomática o refrán en español que la haga sonreír.
Que me haga sonreír. La mona se vista, aunque la mona se vista de seda, mona se queda.
Bueno, no lo comprendí totalmente.
No,
¿Me puede traducir?
no comprendes.
Es que es posible por mi conexión. Pues,
Aunque mona se vista de seda, mona se queda.
mona. Es que yo sé solamente mono, pero no mona.
Mona,
Mona es uno, ¿sí? Bueno, señor, perdóneme, señor, es que es posible, una culpa mía en comprenderlo. Pues, si hubiera dedicado su vida a los idiomas y la academia, ¿qué profesión habría elegido?
actor, quizás un actor o predicador.
¿Es usted un héroe para siempre?
No, esto no quiere decir que el actor siempre es un héroe. Actor puede ser que retrata cualquier papel, ¿no? De la vida.
Ok. El movimiento de mayor orgullo, recibir la Cruz en Panamá o la Cruz del Mérito Civil en España.
Creo que los dos momentos son de gran orgullo.
Una sola palabra para describir el futuro de los estudios de español en la India.
Desafiante y prometedor.
Muchísimas gracias, profesor Dhingra, por esta ronda de Rapid Fire. Pues ahora acabamos esta sesión y muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. Bueno, cambiaré mi idioma ahora. What a fantastic way to conclude, Professor Dhingra. Listening to your experiences, bridging cultures, navigating high-stake diplomacy, and shaping the academic landscape has been truly inspiring for all of us. Muchas gracias for graciously sharing your time, your wisdom, and your stories with us tonight. And
Thank you.
so much for all the audience joining us today. Buenas noches a todos. Nos vemos pronto. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Gracias.